gosh.
Okay, so I thought most, like, the saddest part of that video was that black girl when she was answering all those questions about which baby's good and which baby's bad, and she chose black one is bad, and then she's asked which one is most like you, and then she's like really struggling with the decision, and then resigning to give the black baby.
Kind of seems like a cool question to ask.
Yeah, especially to a little kid. At first I thought it was because usually they play with white dolls, because that's what they had, until they asked which one is better, white one or the black one, like, according to, like, personality, I guess. And then they chose white, and I'm just like, this is so sad. They wouldn't choose their own race.
And we talked about, a second ago we were talking about how, you know, the people, the black people that we know that are from Africa really don't struggle with those same kind of, I guess, issues or perceptions. You said they're perhaps feel a little bit more comfortable with who they are and where they come from, just because they know.
Jump.
It's okay, jump.
Just kidding. You got it.
It's okay. I mean, just because their experiences have been different, and perhaps they haven't grown up and had parents that grew up in a society where that was those kinds of discrimination, those were issues.
Right. Because I think when you see, like, just from my experience living in Houston, like I saw, because there's white people, there's Hispanics, there's African Americans and Africans, and it always seems like the African Americans, they, like, I don't know, it's really interesting to see the difference. Like, they want to be, some of them, like, want to be white, but, like, they still have their African heritage, but it's just almost, like, conflicting sometimes.
I remember when I was selling alarms in Richmond, Virginia, there was this town that I was selling in where there was just a little bit of a busier road separating two neighborhoods, and it was so segregated, completely segregated. Blacks on the sides, white on the side, and I was having a lot of success in, like, the black neighborhood. Go to the white neighborhood, and they're all, like, you know, just not into it, and then it's like, you know, when I saw an alarm, I was like, well, there's a lot of violence over there. Are you worried about it? Which I realized now is kind of stereotypical. And then they're like, oh, those boys know not to come over here. It's like, oh. So it's like, I don't know, it's like I can see why they think, you know, black is bad and white is good, because culturally we kind of separate. We don't want to be together because we see that influence, you know, in that neighborhood. There was a lot of crime over there. There wasn't any crime in white.
I know in my experience, my dad is in the Air Force, and so we got a chance to live overseas, lots of places, and oftentimes we'd live and go to school on military bases where it was all Americans, and so it wasn't like you just could take a sample of people from the South, from the North, from wherever. I mean, it was all walks of life. You know, it was whoever had joined the military and was assigned to this place. And so there were whites, but there weren't quite as many whites as there were Filipinos and blacks and a few Hispanics. And it was really cool because I feel like a lot of those stereotypes, a lot of those things were kind of gone. Kids that were raised military hadn't been raised in those kinds of things because they've been raised in Germany or raised in Turkey. And it was, I mean, as we got older, there's a little bit more of that, but it was just really cool because I spent my youth with a lot of different ethnicities and never really saw a lot of that until I came back to the States. Even, you know, a lot of my closest friends were black kids or were Asian kids, and so I really feel like it doesn't need to be that way. But here in the United States, that's kind of just because of our history, and that's just kind of been created.
Well, I think it's really sad that these, I mean, some people have stereotypes based on skin color. Like, I have cousins who are black, and I have cousins who are Samoan. It's kind of a weird mixed family, but I don't know. I always just never really, like, thought about it because I just kind of grew up with it. But then when I moved down to Texas, I realized, like, how it still is segregated. People are still really racist. But I noticed it was more like racist against whites because there's so many black people down there. They were like really racist against white people. It's interesting.
Seems like I mean, we were reading in a book about everyday form of whiteness, that when you have a lot of African Americans in a community, that there is more of those like cultural problems between whites and blacks. But when it's like below 15%, like what is in the book, people are okay with moving into a neighborhood of less than 15% African American. Like usually there's not as much prejudice when they're more, scattered. I don't know. It's kind of I find that interesting. Like I've grown up in Beaverton, Oregon. There weren't many black families, but they're usually like they didn't fit the stereotype of most African Americans. But if I went to Portland, like you know, First and Center Street in Portland, or Martin Luther King Boulevard, is like all blacks down there, and they totally fit the stereotype.